Hello everyone, welcome to Nucleon Coaching. Myself Chanda Dev and I have brought a very new session with the JEE Mains 2026 Chemistry Paper Solved solution. In this video we will learn and talk about the chemistry questions which came on 21st January's morning shift paper. Okay, so let's start this class. In this class we will see some questions. The very first questions are, here two statements are given and that particular statement says that here tin oxide, lead oxide and germanium oxide contains an oxide between them which shows amphoteric nature, and within these three, two are amphoteric. Statement 2 says that BF3 is an electron deficient molecule that acts as a Lewis acid forming an adduct with ammonia and has a trigonal planar geometry. So before solving, we have to know some basic concepts regarding this topic. So what is amphoteric? Amphoteric are those substances whose oxides acts like an acid and also like a base when they are treated with an acid and a base. Okay. So if I see the very first that is given to me is the tin oxide. So tin, when reacts with an acid, it behaves like a base, and we know when an acid and base reacts with each other, it gives us salt and water. So it will give you SnCl2 plus H2O, right? Similarly, if you treat this again with a base, it will give you the salt, that is sodium aluminate, sodium, and it will give you water. Okay. Same thing if you take SnO2, where the oxidation state of tin is +4. Here also you will get a salt and the water, and even if you treat this with a base, it will act like an acid and give you consecutive salts and the water, right? So any oxide, any metal oxide, it will give you salt and water in presence of acid and a base, and if it is treated with an acid, it acts like a base, and if with a base, it will be acting like an acid. So in this question we see that whenever we treat tin oxide and lead oxide with an acid and a base, it behaves like an amphoteric oxide. But when you talk about this germanium oxide, germanium is a metalloid. So this metalloid, when forms an oxide, his salt again divides, again it reacts with the OH and shows a weak acid. It will act like a weak acid and form an acid in the solution. That is why germanium oxide are considered to be acidic in nature. Okay. So as the question is given to us that there are two oxides which are amphoteric, it is correct. Moving to the next statement. So the next statement says about the BF3 molecule. Now if you want to form the molecule's geometry, then we have to know what is the hybridization of it. So you know what is boron's electronic configuration. Boron, if it shows the electronic configuration, it will be 1s2, 2s2, 2p1. In its excited state, it will show you 1s2, 2s1, 2p, x1, 2p, y1 and 2p, z will be 0. It will be vacant. So when these s orbitals and the p orbitals are mixing their electrons with the fluorine, it will give you sp2 hybridize, right? So sp2 hybridize, so if I want to draw the structure, it will give you trigonal planar geometry, and through this hybridization we see that the 2pz orbital is completely vacant, right? So it is consisting of 6 electrons, 6 number of electrons, but in order to obtain the stable state, it needs 2 more electrons. So who will provide that 2 more electron? The one which has an electron pair rich. So here, if you see the ammonia will be showing you a molecule where there is a lone pair fixed. Okay, there will be an lone pair which is free to make bond. So whenever this BF3 comes in contact with the ammonia, this ammonia will act like a nucleophile and it will attack this electron deficient molecule. So by this it will form a structure in this way. In this manner, and the bond that is formed between these two molecules without separation, without losing any constituent atom, is known as coordinate covalent bond, and that particular bond is known as the adduct, right? So here we can clearly see that it is forming an adduct between BF3 and ammonia, which means that the statement 2 is also correct. So our option number 1 will be correct. Moving to the next statement. So the next question is about the two elements which forms two compounds of PQ and PQ2. Here the PQ has 1 gram of solute and 50 gram of solvent, and the delta TB values are given to us for both the compounds, right? What we have to find? We have to find the molar masses of P and Q in the given compounds. So here what we are going to do is that first of all we have to know the elevation of boiling points concept. So what is elevation of boiling point? Whenever you mix a solution, its boiling point, in the pure state, the boiling point will be like, for example, the water's boiling point is 100 degree, right? If I add a solute, then its boiling point increases, right? That is the elevation of boiling point. So there one equation was given to us, that was delta TB is equals to Kb into molality. If I simplify it, then it will be number of moles of solute divided by molar mass of the solute into mass of the solvent, and in the numerator I have to write 1000, as mass of solvent should be taken as kg. Okay, so there two delta T values are given for the compounds. Let us consider for PQ delta TB1. Okay, so the delta TB1 value is given to us, that is 1.176 equals to 5 into molality, that is 1 gram of solute is given to us. Molar mass of the solute we don't know. Mass of the solvent is 50 into 1000, right? So what will be the molar mass? It will be 100 by 1.76. So if I want to use the calculator and find the value, then it will show me 85.03. Okay, so the molar mass of the solute is 85.03, right? Now for PQ2, so it is delta TB2 Kb dot m. Here elevation of boiling point is given to me, that is 0.689 equals to 5 into 1 into 1000, m2 we don't know, by 50, that is equals to 100 divided by 0.689, right? So the molar mass of that particular solute will be it will be 145.13. Okay. So we have find out the molar masses of the solute. Our target is to find the molar mass of elements of P and Q, right? So two compounds are given, PQ and PQ2. Let us consider the molar mass of P and PQ as M1 dash in PQ and M2 dash in PQ2. Okay. So here for P it is M1 dash, and for PQ2 the value of Q will be M2 dash, right? So here M1 plus M2 dash is equals to 85.03 when we are talking of the compound PQ. Okay, this is for the compound PQ. Now I need to find out the molar masses of P and Q. So let us consider the molar mass of P in the equation as 85.03 minus M2 dash. So consider this is an equation number 1. Next, moving to the another compound, that is PQ2. So in this PQ2, what we will do? We will again write the following equation. Here two Q's are there, so I have to write M2 dash into multiplied by 2, and the molar mass is given for PQ2 is 145.03, right? Let us put the value of M1 dash in equation number 2. This is equation number 2. So what it will be? It will be 85.03 minus M2 dash plus 2 M2 dash, that is equals to 145.03, right? So here M2 dash will be what? It will be the subtraction of 145.03 minus 85.03. So if you want to find the answer, it will be this showing us 60. Okay. So we have found the molar mass of Q by using the equation, this equation number 2. After finding the molar mass of Q, if I put this in equation number 1, I will get the molar mass of the Q that I have considered as M1 dash. So it will be 85.03 minus 60, that will give me 25.03, correct? So I have found the molar masses of elements of P and Q in the given two compounds. The very first for P, it is 25, so our option number 4 will be correct. Here a question is given where 14 gram of calcium is allowed to react with excess HCl at 1 atmospheric pressure and 273 Kelvin. Which of the following statement is incorrect? We have to find out. Okay. So before that, let us find out the correct reaction occurring between calcium and HCl. Now, this calcium when reacts with an HCl, it will give us calcium chloride and hydrogen gas will be evolved, right? Now, how many number of mass of calcium is used? It is 14 gram. By using this, we can also find out the number of moles of calcium that is used in this reaction. So let's find out. It will be N equals to 14 by 40, that is 0.35 mole, which says that 0.35 mole was reacted with HCl that is present in excess and gave us calcium chloride and hydrogen. So how many number of moles of calcium chloride and hydrogen gas will be evolved? We will see that. So if 1 mole of calcium gave us 1 mole of hydrogen, also 1 mole of calcium chloride. So for 0.35 it will be the same thing, that is 0.35 mole of H2 and 0.35 mole of calcium chloride, right? So the first option, that is 0.35 mole of H2 gas is evolved, is correct. This is correct. We have to find out the incorrect one. Now moving to the another statement, that is 7.84 liter of hydrogen gas was evolved. So let us see whether this is correct or not. We know that at standard temperature and pressure, the number of moles is equals to volume of gas divided by 22.4 liter at STP. I have to find out the volume of gas evolved. So let us see. It will be N is given to us, this 0.35 into 22.4, which is equals to 7.84 liter. So our option number 2 is also correct. Moving to option number 3, it is said that 33.3 gram of calcium chloride should be produced. So let us find out. Okay. So let's see that in 1 mole how many number of calcium chloride will be produced. So we know 1 mole of calcium chloride will produce 111 gram of calcium chloride. So for 0.45, which I can write as 14 by 40, it will give me the same 14 divided by 40. So the answer is 38.5. 38.5 gram of calcium chloride was produced when 0.35 mole of calcium was used. So the option number 3 is wrong. Next, limiting reagent is calcium metal. Now what is limiting reagent? Limiting reagent means that particular reactant that we use in a particular reaction which is getting consumed completely throughout the reaction. So throughout the reaction we can see that we have used HCl in excess. So obviously our limiting reagent will be calcium. So the correct answer will be our option number 3. Moving to the next slide. Here a reaction is given. So we have to find out the A, B and it should be C, but it is written X over. Okay, let's find out the answer. So what happens here when lead chloride reacts with potassium chromate? So in this reaction, this lead will react with chromate and potassium will try to form a bond with chloride, and so the reaction will be a double displacement reaction which will be lead chromate plus 2 KCl was produced, potassium chloride was produced. So our compound A will be lead chromate. So let us see where it is. Lead chromate is number 1. Okay, so here this and this is given to us, that means option number A and option number 3 will be incorrect. We have to find out between these two which will be the correct option. Moving to the another, that is this compound A, it was in excess. Okay, it was reacted with in excess. So when this compound A will react with NaOH in excess, the very first thing it will produce as lead hydroxide. Okay, it will produce and give you lead hydroxide in the solution. After that, since you are taking it in excess, as NaOH is present in excess amount, this will form a compound, and where the lead hydroxide will convert into PbOH3. Okay, so this compound will get formed. So by this we can see, yeah, our option number 4 will be correct, but let's see what our compound B will be. So compound B, we got the following. Now when lead sulfate is reacted with ammonium sulfate, CH3COONH4. So throughout this reaction what happens, again this acetate will come in contact with the lead and ammonium sulfate will go and react with the ammonium. So ammonium sulfate will be formed, NH4, SO4, and here lead acetate will get formed. Okay, so our correct option will be option number 4. Okay. So the next question is about considering here a reaction that gives a product C at the final, and if X is the number of O2 minus unit, Y is the total number of oxygen atoms, Z is the oxidation state of chromium, we have to find out the value of X plus Y plus Z. Okay, so if you go through the class 12 practicals of chemistry, you might have found the salt analysis test, right? Salt analysis experiments. So in this experiment we use a reaction to find out the conformation of chloride as an acidic radical in the given salt sample. That particular reaction is said to be chromyl chloride test, right? So this is the chromyl chloride reaction. So what happens here, when this sodium chloride reacts with potassium dichromate in presence of H2SO4, it gives us a reddish form of vapors. Okay, that particular vapor is of chromyl chloride. This chromyl chloride also gives some byproducts with it. Those byproducts are written in the form questions. Still I am writing it here. So this is the compound A. Now this compound A further when reacts with sodium hydroxide, it gives a PPT. That particular PPT is of sodium dichromate. Okay, so this is the compound number B. Now following reaction occurs between sodium chromate plus H2SO4 plus hydrogen peroxide H2O2, that gives us chromium pentoxide with sodium sulfate and H2O. Correct? So this is the reaction. This is the final reaction. Now we are all talking about the product C. So what is the structure of chromium pentoxide? So chromium pentoxide structure is a butterfly form of structure, that is in this manner, where the oxygens form peroxides between them and there is a double bond between chromium and oxygen. So what is the compound X? This X, what happens? If you see O2 2 minus, means we are talking about this peroxide. So peroxide's oxidation state is -1, right? So 2 peroxides are given to us, it will be 2. So x value will be minus 2. Now talking about the compound Y. Now in this compound Y, there are how many number of oxygen atoms? There are 5. So Y will be 5. Moving to the next, it is Z. Now what is the oxygen state here of chromium? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So it is plus 6. So Z will be plus 6. We need to find out the values of the sum of x plus y plus z, that will be equals to 9. So this is the final answer. Okay. So moving to the next question, pre-exponential factors of two different reactions of same orders are identical. Let activation energies of first reaction exceed the activation energy of the second reaction by 20 kilojoule per mole. If K1 and K2 are the rate constants of first and second reaction, we need to find out the ln K2 by K1 at 300 Kelvin. Okay. Now let's solve this reaction. This equation is about the Arrhenius equations. Okay. We have found in Arrhenius theory that a particular reaction was given defining about the activation energies. So what was the reaction? The equation that was given in that particular reaction for first and second order will be K equals to A e to the power minus EA divided by RT. Since we are talking about two reactions, we will consider K1 and here E1. Okay. Now it is said that activation energy of first reaction exceeds the activation energy of the second reaction by 20 kilojoule per mole. So it is talking about the differences between them, right? So let us consider by taking ln at both the side, then we will see that it will be ln A minus EA1 divided by R. T is given to us, it is 300. Okay, this is equation number 1. For ln K2, will be ln A minus EA2 divided by 300 R that is equation number 2. Now equation 2 minus equation number 1, if I do that, then it will be ln K2 minus ln K1 ln A minus EA2 divided by 300 R minus ln A plus EA1 divided by 300 R, where R is our gas constant. So by this we can cancel out the ln A's, and we know the ln A minus ln B formula, that is ln K2 by K1. If I rearrange it, it will be EA1 minus EA2 divided by 300. Our gas constant is given in joule, so it will be 8.3 divided by 1000. Okay. Here the differences, that is the first reaction exceeds the activation energy of second reaction by 20 kilojoules. So 20 kilojoule exceed, it is done. That means 20 divided by, let's write it here, 1300 into 8.3. So what would be the final answer? It would be 200 divided by 8.3 into 3, that is equals to 72.89. Let us again do it once more. Okay, 8.3 into 3, 24.9. So the answer here it is 24.9 divided by 24.9 would be 0.803. Okay, so the final answer is 0.803. So the ratio between them would be this. Okay, moving to the next question, it is from our electrochemistry topic. So here pH is given to us 5. So let's write first the given part. Given pH is equals to 5, and we know what is pH. pH is equals to negative logarithm of H plus, right? So the H plus can be written as 10 to the power minus 5, correct? Now we are talking about the weak acids. So weak acids partially gets dissociated, so it will give you partial dissociation of H plus plus X negative. So at time t, when the reaction was not started, the concentration of HX was considered as C. So the product will be 0 obtained. With time, some of the H plus were getting dissociated. The reaction getting dissociated, and we got it as C alpha concentration of both the ions. Now we can also write this C alpha as, here I can write H plus, instead of writing H plus concentration we can write C alpha, that is equals to 10 to the power minus 5, correct? And we know that what is alpha. Alpha is talking about the degree of dissociation, and the degree of dissociation is equals to delta M divided by delta M naught, where delta M is our molar conductivity and delta M naught is the limiting molar conductivity, right? Okay. Now what else it is given? It is given that the conductance. So conductance is given 4 into 10 to the power minus 5 Simon. We need to find out the delta M. Now delta M is equals to K by C into 1000, correct? We know this formula for limiting, for molar conductivity, right? Now how to find out this specific conductivity? Specific conductivity we know how to find it out, that is K is equals to G into G star. Now what is G star? G star is our cell constant. We know what our Z is, it is 4 into 10 to the power minus 5. Cell constant means length by area of cross section. So length is 15, area of cross section is 1. So the answer will be 6 into 10 to the power minus 5 Simon centimeter inverse, okay, mole inverse. Now we can also write it as 6 into 10 to the power minus 4, correct? It is given in Simon centimeter inverse. The mole will not come now, okay? We will write about this molar conductivity, then we will consider it as mole inverse. Now we have found out the conductivity, that is our K. Let us put this in this equation. Okay. Now let us consider this equation number 1, this is equation number 2. So equation number 1 can also be written as C delta M divided by delta M naught, that is equals to 10 to the power minus 5, correct? We have to find out the limiting molar conductivity. Now I can write this as K we got, that is 6 into 10 to the power minus 4 into 1000. C was given, so let us write C here, into limiting molar conductivity equals to 10 to the power minus 5. It will get cancelled out. What is left with us? It is 6 into 10 to the power minus 4 plus 3 divided by delta m naught equals to 10 to the power minus 5. Correct? We can proceed it and write it as delta m naught equals to 6 into 10 to the power minus 1 divided by 10 to the power minus 5, that will be equals to 6 into 10 to the power 4. Correct? We need the limiting molar conductivity, and we know the unit of limiting conductivity is Simon meter square mole inverse. So it is given in Simon centimeter inverse. So in order to convert it into meter square, I need to divide it with 10 to the power 4. So what will be my limiting molar conductivity? Limiting molar conductivity will be 6 Simon meter square mole inverse. I hope you have understood the following solution. Moving to the next slide. So in this slide, we are talking about the thermodynamics topic, where delta H and delta S values are given to us. Okay? We know what is H and S. H talks about the enthalpy of the reaction, and entropy is our delta S. Here a reaction was done between the reactant A and B that gave us the product 2AB. So throughout this reaction, the enthalpy change is given to us, and we need to find out the value of X. Okay, this value we need to find out. We know how to find the delta H formula. Delta H naught formation is equals to delta H final minus delta H initial. Okay, so in the final we have seen that it is given 32. So 2 moles of AB is formed, so we will write it as 2 into 32 minus the initial, that is 6 plus X. So it will be 64 minus 6 plus X, that is equals to 58 minus X, right? Now let's find out the entropy. So entropy of formation is also given. If it is asking about the standard formation, then we need to write the not. If it is not, then we don't have to write. Okay, it was not here, sorry. Okay, now here also final minus the initial. So in final it is 2 into 222 minus 146 plus 280, so which gave us the result as 6, 2, 4, that is equals to minus, I think it will be 18. So let's confirm it. 426 minus 444, that is equals to, yeah, it will be minus 18. Okay, our aim is to find out the X. Here log K value is given, that is 2.2, R is given, that is 8.3 Joule Kelvin inverse. So there is a relation between this enthalpy and entropy, that was delta H naught minus T delta S naught, which is also said to be as our Gibbs free energy. Correct? This Gibbs free energy can be written as RT ln K. Delta H we have found, that is 58 minus X. Temperature is given to us. Temperature is 500. 500. Here it is 18. If you see properly, the enthalpy was given in kilojoule and entropy is given in joule. So let's convert it into kilojoule. So for conversion, we will write it by dividing it with 1000. Here R value is given in joule, so let us convert it also. It is 1000 into temperature was 500 and ln K value is 2.2. So let's simplify the following. So it will be so minus minus, it will be plus, which is equals to, let's solve it first, 1.1. So if I multiply 8.3 into 1.1, we will get 9.13 equals to, here it was 58, that is equals to 67 minus x. Okay, we need to find out minus x. So if it goes this side, then it will be 67 minus 9.13. So the answer will be 76. Okay, so our x value will be 76.13. Okay, so this is our final answer. So I hope you have understood throughout the session. Thank you.